The fluorescent lights above the hospital corridor buzzed with that persistent hum that had become the soundtrack of my exhaustion. I pressed my palm against the cool wall, steadying myself as another wave of dizziness washed over me. 14 hours. 14 hours of running between patient rooms, of smiling through the ache in my feet, of pretending I wasn't one missed paycheck away from losing everything. The smell of antiseptic mixed with the faint aroma of cafeteria coffee created a cocktail that used to nauseate me. Now it was just normal. Background noise to the chaos of my life. "Emma, you okay?" Sarah's voice cut through my fog. I straightened, forcing brightness into my expression. "Just tired. Double shift, you know?" She squeezed my shoulder with the kind of pity I'd grown to hate. Everyone here knew my story. The single mother working herself to the bone. The absent father who'd vanished before our daughter's first birthday. The mountain of medical school debt I'd never finish paying. I was invisible in my struggle. Just another nurse drowning in the American dream. "Get some rest," Sarah said, already moving toward the next emergency. Rest. What a luxury. I grabbed my bag from my locker, the zipper broken for 3 months now because I couldn't afford to replace it. My reflection in the small mirror inside the door showed a woman I barely recognized anymore. 26, but looking 35. Dark circles painting shadows beneath hazel eyes. Auburn hair scraped back into a bun so tight it gave me headaches. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual. My phone buzzed. A text from the daycare about late pickup fees. Again. My chest tightened with that familiar panic, the one that lived just beneath my ribs, a constant companion. The hospital parking garage at midnight was a concrete tomb. My footsteps echoed against cement walls tagged with graffiti, each sound amplified by exhaustion. I clutched my keys between my fingers the way the self-defense video had taught me, though I doubted I had the energy to fight off anyone. That's when I heard them. Voices. Low, urgent, dangerous. I froze near the entrance to the stairwell, my heart suddenly thundering loud enough to drown out the buzzing lights. The smart thing would have been to turn around, to take the elevator back up, to call security. But I saw him. A man on his knees, blood streaming from his nose, hands zip-tied behind his back, and standing over him, my breath caught. He was tall, imposing in a way that had nothing to do with height, and everything to do with presence. A black suit that probably cost more than my car, tailored so perfectly it seemed painted on. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp jaw, straight nose, lips set in a line that promised cruelty. But it was his eyes that paralyzed me. Even from this distance, even in the dim garage lighting, they gleamed with something cold and calculating. 2 men flanked him, both built like linebackers, both watching the kneeling man with a detached interest of people who'd seen this scene play out too many times. I should have moved, should have run. Instead, my bag slipped from my numb fingers. The sound of my keys hitting concrete was deafening. Every head turned toward me, those cold eyes found mine, and the world tilted. "Well?" His voice was smooth, cultured, utterly calm despite the violence frozen in tableau before him. "It seems we have a witness." My legs wouldn't work. My voice had abandoned me somewhere between terror and shock. I watched as he straightened, adjusting his cufflinks with the casual grace of a man fixing his appearance for a business meeting rather than standing over a bleeding, bound person. He moved toward me, and each step felt like a countdown. "Please," I finally managed, my voice cracking. "I didn't see anything. I'll go. I won't say anything, I promise." "Promises," he murmured, now close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive, cedar and citrus and smoke. Such fragile things. One of his men moved to grab me, but he raised a hand, stopping him mid-motion. "Don't touch her." The command was soft, but absolute. He studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. His gaze traveled from my worn sneakers to my wrinkled scrubs to my face, lingering there with an expression I couldn't decipher. "You're a nurse." Not a question. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Working late." Another nod. "Alone." That one sent ice down my spine. He reached out, and I flinched, but he only picked up my bag from where it had fallen, holding it carefully, almost gently. His fingers brushed mine as he handed it back, and I felt calluses I didn't expect, warmth I didn't want to notice. "What's your name?" "Emma," I whispered, then immediately cursed myself. Why did I tell him? "Emma." He repeated it like he was tasting it, rolling it around to see how it fit. "I'm going to give you a choice, Emma, a rare gift from me." My heart hammered so hard I thought I might pass out. "You can walk away right now, pretend you saw nothing, live your life." He paused, and something flickered in those cold eyes. "Or you can help this man." I looked past him at the kneeling figure, at the blood, at the fear carved into every line of his face. "Help him?" My voice sounded foreign. "He's bleeding. You're a nurse." Simple mathematics. His tone remained conversational, as if we were discussing the weather. "And if I help him? Then you become involved. And once you're involved with me, Emma, you don't simply walk away." It was a trap. I knew it was a trap. The smart choice was obvious. Turn around, forget this ever happened, protect myself and Lily. But I looked at that man's face, saw the desperate hope flickering in his eyes, and thought of the Hippocratic oath. "First, do no harm. I need my medical kit from my car," I heard myself say. Something changed in his expression. Surprise, perhaps, or approval. He gestured to one of his men. "Bring her kit. It's in the trunk. Gray Honda, 2 rows over." The man looked to his boss, who nodded once. As we waited, the silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. I couldn't stop my hands from shaking, couldn't slow my racing pulse. He noticed, of course. He seemed to notice everything. "You're afraid of me." Again, not a question. "Yes," I admitted, because lying seemed pointless. "Good. Fear keeps people alive." He tilted his head, studying me with that unnerving intensity. "But you're helping anyway." I took an oath. "Ah, honor." The word dripped with something between admiration and mockery. How refreshing. The man returned with my kit, and I knelt beside the bleeding prisoner, hyper-aware of the eyes boring into my back. My hands steadied as I worked. This, at least, I knew how to do. I cleaned the blood, checked for broken bones, applied butterfly bandages with practiced efficiency. "He'll need a hospital," I said without looking up. "Possible concussion? Definitely needs stitches. No hospitals." I did look up then, meeting those cold eyes with more courage than I felt. Then he might die. Everyone dies eventually, Emma. The casual cruelty in his tone made my stomach turn, but I held his gaze. "Not on my watch. Not if I can help it." Silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken challenge. Then, impossibly, his lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "Fascinating," he murmured, more to himself than to me. He pulled out a phone. No, phones, plural, selected one, and made a call in rapid Italian. I caught maybe 3 words, none of them comforting. "My people will take him somewhere safe. You've done your part." He extended his hand to help me up. I ignored it, standing on my own, though my legs felt like water. "Can I go now?" "Of course." "I'm not a monster, Emma." The evidence suggested otherwise. But I kept that thought locked behind my teeth. I gathered my kit, my bag, my keys, took 3 steps toward my car before his voice stopped me. "Emma." I froze but didn't turn around. "You made the right choice. For him, at least." A pause, weighted with meaning. "For yourself? Time will tell." I practically ran to my car, hands fumbling with the lock, breath coming in gasps. It wasn't until I was 3 blocks away, stopped at a red light with tears streaming down my face, that I noticed it. A business card, tucked into the side pocket of my bag. No name, just a phone number embossed in gold, and underneath, in elegant script, "For when you need me. And you will." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. That perfectly tailored suit, those calculating eyes, the casual way he'd stood over a bleeding man like it was just another Tuesday. I'd tucked the business card into my nightstand drawer, buried beneath old receipts and expired coupons, as if hiding it could erase what had happened. It couldn't. Lily's laughter pulled me from my spiraling thoughts. She sat at our tiny kitchen table, her blonde curls catching the morning sunlight as she attacked her cereal, with the enthusiasm only a 4-year-old could muster. In moments like these, Looking at her bright blue eyes and dimpled smile, I could almost forget the weight crushing my chest. "Mommy, you look tired," she said, tilting her head in that way that broke my heart and put it back together simultaneously. "Just a long night at work, baby." I kissed the top of her head, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. The cheap kind, but she loved it. My phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. "Extra shift available tonight. Interested?" I stared at the message, calculating. The money would help with the mounting daycare fees, maybe even let me fix the car's check engine light that had been glowing for 2 months. But it meant another night away from Lily, another night of exhaustion, another step closer to the edge I'd been teetering on for years. I typed back, "Yes." The day passed in a blur of cartoons, playground time, and pretending everything was fine. I'd perfected the art of hiding my terror behind smiles and silly voices. Lily deserved better than a mother who jumped at shadows, who checked the locks 3 times before bed, who kept seeing a stranger's cold eyes in every dark corner. By the time I dropped her at daycare and headed to my shift, I'd almost convinced myself it had been a nightmare. A stress-induced hallucination brought on by exhaustion and too much coffee. Then I saw the car. A black SUV, windows tinted so dark they looked like pools of ink, parked across from the hospital entrance. It hadn't been there this morning. I would have noticed. I noticed everything now, hyper-vigilant in a way that made my nerves sing with constant tension. I told myself I was being paranoid. Plenty of people drove black SUVs, but when I glanced back after entering the hospital, it was still there, idling like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. My shift started normally enough. Vital checks, medication rounds, charting. The familiar rhythm should have calmed me, but I couldn't shake the crawling sensation between my shoulder blades, the certainty that I was being watched. "Emma, you've checked that IV bag 3 times. Dr. Duert," Martinez said, not unkindly. "Everything okay?" "Fine. Sorry, just distracted." He studied me with concern, but I turned away before he could dig deeper. The last thing I needed was questions I couldn't answer. During my break, I sat in the staff room with cold coffee and shaking hands, staring at my phone. The rational part of my brain said to call the police, report what I'd seen. But the survival instinct that had kept me afloat through every hardship whispered that involving the authorities would only make things worse. People like him, people with that kind of power, that casual command over violence. They didn't leave witnesses. They certainly didn't give them business cards and let them walk away unless they wanted something. The thought made my stomach clench. "There's someone asking for you at the nurse's station." Sarah poked her head in, expression curious. "Says it's personal?" Ice flooded my veins. "Who?" "Didn't give a name. But Emma..." She lowered her voice. "He looks expensive, like scary expensive." My legs moved before my brain caught up, carrying me down the corridor on autopilot. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was someone else, something innocent, a coincidence. He stood near the station, somehow making the sterile hospital environment look cheaper by his mere presence. Same perfect suit, different color. Charcoal gray this time, with a black shirt that made him look like walking midnight. His hands were in his pockets, posture relaxed, but I recognized the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes tracked every movement around him. 2 men flanked him at a respectful distance, clearly security despite their attempt at casual clothing. One spoke quietly into a phone while scanning the corridor. The other simply stood, hands clasped in front of him, emanating threat. He saw me and smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Emma? You look better with sleep. What are you doing here?" I kept my voice low, aware of the curious stares from staff and visitors. "Visiting a friend." He gestured vaguely toward the private wing. "Imagine my surprise when I realized you work here." Liar. He'd known exactly where I worked. That's why he was here. "I'm working," I said, trying to sound firm despite my racing pulse. "I can't talk." "Then listen." He moved closer, and I caught that scent again. Cedar, citrus, smoke. It wrapped around me like a warning. "The man you helped last night, he's stable, recovering, thanks to you." "Good. Now if you'll excuse me..." His hand shot out, catching my wrist. Not hard, not painful, but absolutely immovable. "I'm not finished." The world narrowed to the point of contact, his fingers warm against my skin, his touch somehow both gentle and threatening. I looked up at him, really looked, and saw something dangerous flickering in those eyes. Interest, curiosity, something darker I couldn't name. "You did me a favor," he continued, voice dropping lower. "I don't like being in debt. You don't owe me anything. That's not how I operate." He released my wrist but didn't step back. "Tell me what you need, Emma. I need you to leave me alone. Besides that." The audacity of it stunned me into silence. He stood there, in the middle of a hospital corridor, offering me, what? Blood money? Payment for my complicity? "I don't want anything from you," I managed. "Everyone wants something." His gaze traveled over my face, cataloging details. "You work double shifts. Your scrubs are worn. You drive a car held together by prayer and duct tape. You have a daughter. Lily, 4 years old, attends Little Stars daycare on Cumberland Avenue." The blood drained from my face. "How do you—" "I make it my business to know things," he said it casually, as if he hadn't just revealed that he'd been investigating me, digging into my life, learning about my daughter. "You're drowning, Emma. Let me throw you a rope. I don't need your help." "No?" He pulled out his phone, the same one from last night, and showed me the screen. Bank statements, my bank statements. 3,000 in debt, car payment overdue, daycare threatening to drop your daughter if you miss another payment. Shall I continue? Rage ignited beneath my fear, hot and bright. "You had no right. I had every right. You became my concern the moment you chose to help instead of run." He pocketed the phone, expression unreadable. "I'm offering you a solution. I don't want your dirty money." Something flickered across his face. Amusement, maybe respect. "Who said anything about money? I'm offering you a job." That stopped me cold. "What?" "I have people who occasionally need medical attention. People who can't go to hospitals for various reasons. You'd be on call, well compensated, and your current life remains unchanged." He tilted his head. "Unless you prefer struggling alone?" It was wrong. Every instinct screamed that accepting anything from this man was crossing a line I could never uncross. But God, I was so tired. Tired of choosing between groceries and gas, between Lily's needs and my own, between drowning slowly and drowning fast. "I need to think about it," I whispered. "You have 24 hours. He reached into his jacket. I flinched, he noticed, and pulled out an envelope. "Consider this a signing bonus for last night's work." "I can't." He pressed it into my hands, his fingers covering mine completely, warm and calloused and steady. "You can. You will. Because pride doesn't feed your daughter, Emma." The cruelty of the truth made my eyes burn. 24 hours, he repeated, then stepped back, adjusting his cuffs with that same casual grace. "Oh, and Emma, that car parked outside, consider it personal protection. You're valuable to me now. I protect what's mine. I'm not yours." His smile was slow, predatory. Promised, not yet. He walked away, his security falling into formation around him, leaving me standing in the corridor with an envelope that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds and a future that had just shifted beneath my feet. I didn't open it until my shift ended, locked in my car in the hospital parking garage. A different level this time, flooded with fluorescent light. My hands shook as I tore the seal. $5,000. Cash. And another card. This one with actual text. For Lily's daycare. No child should suffer for her mother's pride. I sat there, money in my lap, tears streaming down my face, and hated him almost as much as I hated myself for considering his offer. The black SUV was still there when I drove away, following at a distance, a shadow I couldn't shake. When I got home, Lily was already asleep, my neighbor having watched her for the extra shift. I stood in her doorway, watching her chest rise and fall, her tiny hand curled around her favorite stuffed rabbit, and made a decision that would change everything. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number from the first card. He answered on the first ring, as if he'd been waiting. "Emma." "One condition," I said, voice steady despite everything. "Lily never knows. She never sees you, never meets you, never gets involved in whatever world you live in. She stays innocent." Silence stretched. Then, "Agreed. Then I'll do it. Wise choice. I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "Welcome to the family, Emma." He hung up, and I stood in my daughter's doorway, holding $5,000 in dirty money and the certainty that I'd just made a deal with the devil. The worst part? I wasn't sure I regretted it. The first call came 3 days later, at 2 a.m. I'd been waiting for it, sleeping in my scrubs, phone on the loudest setting, jumping at every notification. The anticipation was its own form of torture, worse than the actual moment when his name appeared on my screen. Not a name, really. Just unknown caller. But I knew. "Hello?" "There's a car outside." His voice smooth and unhurried despite the hour. "You have 15 minutes. The line went dead. I checked on Lily, still asleep, thumb tucked in her mouth, and left a note for my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who I'd paid extra to be on standby. My hands trembled as I locked the door, as I walked down the 3 flights of stairs from our apartment, as I approached the black SUV idling at the curb. The door opened before I reached it. "Miss Emma." The driver nodded, his accent thick. Eastern European, maybe. Built like a mountain, with scars that told stories I didn't want to hear. "Please." The interior smelled like leather and danger. I'd barely settled into the seat when we pulled away, tires humming against asphalt as the city blurred past my window. I tried to track our route, memorize turns and landmarks, but within minutes I was hopelessly lost in neighborhoods I'd never seen. We drove for 20 minutes before pulling up to a warehouse in what looked like the industrial district. Rust stained the corrugated metal walls, and broken windows gaped like missing teeth. The perfect place for something terrible to happen. My medical kit felt heavy as I climbed out. This way. Another man. This one smaller but somehow more frightening, with eyes that held no warmth. He led me through a side door, down a corridor that smelled of oil and something metallic that might have been old blood. The room at the end was surprisingly clean. Bright lights, a metal table, medical supplies I recognized from hospitals. And on that table, bleeding through makeshift bandages, was a man who looked like he'd lost a fight with a knife. Several knives. "Jesus," I breathed, rushing forward automatically. Not quite. That voice, the one that had haunted my dreams. I spun around. He stood in the doorway, somehow making the grimy warehouse look like his throne room. Black suit, blood on his knuckles, expression carved from ice. Behind him, 2 more men dragged someone unconscious, leaving a streak of red across the concrete floor. "Busy night?" I asked, surprised by my own steadiness. His lips curved. "You could say that." I turned back to the patient, letting training override terror. Stab wounds, 3 of them, all shallow but bleeding profusely, possible internal damage. I worked quickly, cleaning, assessing, stitching with hands that forgot to shake once I started. He watched. I felt his eyes tracking every movement, cataloging every detail, studying me with that unnerving intensity. The weight of his attention made my skin prickle, made me hyper-aware of every breath, every shift in posture. "You're good at this," he observed after I'd finished the 3rd set of stitches. "It's my job. Was your job. Now you work for me." I peeled off my bloody gloves, met his gaze directly. "I work for myself. You just pay better." Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, approval, danger. Semantics. Important ones. He moved closer, each step deliberate, until he stood beside me at the table. This close, I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, the faint scar along his jawline, the muscles that shifted beneath his tailored jacket. This close, I could feel the heat radiating from him, the controlled violence that hummed just beneath his polished surface. "What's your name?" The question escaped before I could stop it. His eyebrow rose. "You don't know. You never told me. Dante." He said it like a confession. Dante Moretti. The name meant nothing to me, but clearly it should have, based on the sharp look he gave me. "Should I know that name?" "If you read newspapers, yes. If you're smart, no." He reached past me for a clean towel, his arm brushing mine, and I froze at the contact. "Ignorance has protected you so far, Emma. Don't be in a hurry to lose it. Kind of late for that. Yes." His voice dropped lower, intimate despite the warehouse and witnesses. "It is." The patient groaned, pulling my attention back. I checked his vitals, adjusted the IV I'd set up, made notes on a pad that appeared from nowhere. Professional. Detached. Ignoring the way my pulse raced whenever Dante moved, whenever he spoke, whenever he existed too close to me. He'll need monitoring, I said, stepping back to put distance between us. Infection risk is high. I can come back tomorrow. You'll stay. I blinked. Excuse me? Until he's stable. You'll stay here. Monitor him. There's a room upstairs. Clean, comfortable. Everything you need. I have a daughter. Already handled. Mrs. Chen has been compensated for the week. Lily will think you're working extra shifts at the hospital. He tilted his head. I told you, Emma. I protect what's mine. Stop saying that. I'm not... You took my money. You answered my call. You're here. He moved closer again, crowding into my space, forcing me to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Whether you accept it or not, you're mine now. And I take care of what belongs to me. The possessiveness in his tone should have terrified me. Instead, something traitorous and warm unfurled in my chest. Something that had been cold and alone for so long it had forgotten what safety felt like, even poisoned safety. 1 week, I managed. Then I go home. 1 week, he agreed. But the way he said it sounded like a beginning, not an end. The days blurred together in that warehouse. I monitored my patient, Alessandro, I learned, one of Dante's captains who'd been ambushed during a collection. I changed bandages, administered antibiotics, tracked vitals with the same efficiency I'd use at the hospital. But everything else was different. Dante appeared at odd hours, sometimes in suits, sometimes in casual clothes that somehow looked more dangerous. He'd sit in the corner of the room, working on his phone. Phones, plural, always phones, making calls in Italian that sounded like threats wrapped in silk. His presence filled the space, made the air thick with tension I couldn't name. And he watched me. Constantly. Don't you have other things to do? I asked on the third day, exhausted and irritable and too aware of him. Many things. He didn't look up from his phone. I'm doing them. While staring at me, I'm multi-talking. That's not a word. It is now. He finally met my gaze, and something in his expression made my breath catch. You're... interesting. Interesting. The word tasted bitter. Is that what you call... people you force into employment? I didn't force you. I offered. You accepted. Because you made it impossible to refuse. Yes. No shame, no apology. Just fact. That's how this works, Emma. I see what I want. I take it. I'm not a thing to be taken. He set down his phone, giving me his full attention. The shift was palpable. Dangerous. No. You're something far more valuable. You're honest in a world of liars. Brave despite being terrified. Gentle with monsters who deserve no gentleness. He stood, crossed to where I stood by Alessandro's bed. You're a contradiction, and I've always been fascinated by puzzles. I'm not your puzzle to solve. We'll see. On the fourth night, Alessandro's fever spiked. I'd been dozing in a chair when the monitor alarmed, jolting me awake. His skin burned, his breathing ragged, and panic clawed up my throat as I checked his wounds. Red, angry, infected, despite my precautions. I need proper antibiotics, I said to the guard stationed outside. Hospital grade. Now. He made a call. Within 15 minutes, Dante appeared, still in evening wear from whatever he'd been doing, looking like sin in a tuxedo. What do you need? I rattled off medications, dosages, specifications. He relayed them into his phone without question, never breaking eye contact with me. 20 minutes later, a man arrived with a bag containing everything I'd requested, plus equipment I hadn't known to ask for. I worked through the night, fighting the infection, pushing fluids, monitoring every subtle change. Dante stayed, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, helping where I directed with hands that were surprisingly gentle for all the violence they'd committed. You're good at following orders, I said around 3 a.m., delirious with exhaustion, only from people who've earned my respect. I glanced at him, saw something soft in his expression, quickly shuddered. And I've earned it? You're here. Fighting for someone you don't know. Someone involved in a world you hate, because you took an oath. He handed me fresh gauze. Yes, Emma. You've earned it. By dawn, The fever broke. Alessandro's breathing eased, color returning to his face. I sagged against the wall, drained and dizzy and triumphant in the way only saving a life could make you feel. Dante caught me before I slid to the floor, arms strong and steady, lifting me like I weighed nothing. You need rest. I need to monitor. Someone else will monitor. You need rest. He carried me toward the door, and I was too exhausted to fight, too wrung out to protest the way I fit against his chest, the way his heartbeat thundered beneath my ear. The room upstairs was exactly as promised. Clean, comfortable, private. He laid me on the bed with unexpected care, pulling a blanket over me even though I was still in my scrubs. Sleep, he commanded. Bossy, I mumbled, eyes already closing. You have no idea. I felt him move away, heard his footsteps retreating. Then, just as consciousness slipped away, thank you, Emma, for saving him. When I woke, it was evening. A tray of food sat on the nightstand. Real food, not warehouse vending machine garbage. Pasta and cream sauce, fresh bread, fruit that looked like it came from somewhere expensive. And a note in bold, masculine handwriting. Eat, you're too thin. D. I hated that the concern made me smile. The week ended, but everything had changed. Alessandro recovered enough to be moved, and Dante's men packed up the makeshift medical bay with military efficiency. I should have felt relief. I'd done my job, earned my pay, could go home to Lily and pretend this was just an bizarre detour. Instead, I felt hollow. Dante drove me home himself, no driver, no security visible, though I suspected they followed at a distance. The car was sleek, expensive, smelled like leather and his cologne. He drove with the same controlled precision he applied to everything, fingers steady on the wheel, eyes tracking every vehicle around us. This doesn't have to end, he said as we neared my neighborhood. My heart jumped. What? This arrangement. You're good at what you do. I have frequent need of discretion and skill. He glanced at me, expression unreadable. I'd like to keep you on retainer, like a lawyer. Like someone valuable. The word hung between us, weighted with meanings I was afraid to examine. I'll think about it, I said, though we both knew I'd already decided. He pulled up to my building, put the car in park, turned to face me fully. Emma. Yes? You did well. Better than I expected. His hand reached out, hesitated, then tucked a strand of hair behind my ear with shocking gentleness. I don't give compliments often, remember that. His touch lingered, warm against my skin, and I fought the urge to lean into it, to let myself want the comfort he offered. I should go, I whispered. Lily is fine. Mrs. Chen just put her to bed. He smiled at my shocked expression. I told you. I keep track. That's creepy. That's careful. His hand dropped, leaving cold in its wake. Same time next week? Maybe. Definitely. He said it with certainty, with possession, with promise. Sleep well, Emma. Dream of safe things. I climbed out, grabbed my bag, walked toward my building on legs that felt unsteady. At the door, I turned back. He was still there, watching, waiting, making sure I got inside safely. The devil, taking care of his investments. Or maybe, and this was the dangerous thought I tried to bury, taking care of me. 3 months passed in a strange rhythm I'd never intended to find comfortable. Calls came irregularly, sometimes twice a week, sometimes none at all. Each time I'd drop everything, climb into whatever vehicle Dante sent, and tend to men who'd been shot, stabbed, beaten. I didn't ask questions. They didn't offer explanations. I stitched wounds and set bones and pushed antibiotics with the detached efficiency of someone who'd learned to compartmentalize. The money was obscene. More than I'd made in a year at the hospital, deposited into an account Dante had set up under a consulting firm's name. Legal, he'd assured me. Mostly. I paid off my debts, fixed my car, bought Lily new clothes that actually fit, toys that weren't secondhand, stopped choosing between groceries and gas, between her needs and mine. The relief was intoxicating, addictive, and terrifying in how quickly I'd grown dependent on blood money. But it wasn't just the money that kept me answering his calls. Dante had become present. Not physically, not always, but in 1,000 small ways that wove him into my life like threads I couldn't unpick. Flowers appeared at my door, no card, but I knew. My car's check engine light mysteriously fixed itself. Lily's daycare suddenly had a scholarship available. Anonymous donor that covered half her tuition. And then there were the nights he'd appear at the hospital after my legitimate shifts, leaning against my car like he owned it, hands in pockets, that dangerous smile playing at his lips. "Hungry?" he'd ask, as if stalking me was perfectly normal. I should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries, distance, professionalism. Instead, I found myself in late-night diners, expensive restaurants that closed their doors for private events that were just him and me, quiet cafes where he drank espresso that looked like oil and watched me eat like my appetite personally satisfied him. We talked. God help me, we talked. He told me about growing up in Sicily, about his father's empire and the weight of legacy. I told him about nursing school, about Lily's father leaving, about the exhaustion of being alone. He made me laugh with dry observations about his associate's stupidity. I made him smile, really smile, not that cold calculation, with stories about Lily's antics. It felt dangerous. This felt more dangerous than the warehouses and blood and late-night calls. Because somewhere between stitching wounds and stolen dinners, I'd stopped seeing him as the monster in the parking garage, and that terrified me more than anything. "You're thinking too loud," Dante said, pulling me from my spiral. We sat in his car. He'd intercepted me after another shift, convinced me to drive with him. Nowhere specific, just driving. The city lights blurred past as rain drummed against the windshield, cocooning us in artificial intimacy. "Sorry," I murmured. "Don't be. I like watching your mind work." He glanced at me, one hand on the wheel, the other draped casually over the console between us. "You get this little crease right here." His finger touched the space between my eyebrows, feather-light. "When you're worried about something." I jerked back from the contact, pulse jumping. "You're too observant." Occupational hazard. He returned his hand to the wheel, but I could still feel the ghost of his touch. "What's bothering you?" "This. Us. Whatever this is. Employer and employee, liar." His lips curved. "You're learning." "Dante." "I like when you say my name." He said it quietly, almost to himself. Then louder. "Say it again." "What? Why?" "Because everyone else says it with fear or respect or calculation. You say it like I'm just a person." I like that. The vulnerability in his admission cracked something in my chest. "You are just a person." "No, Emma. I'm really not." He took an exit I didn't recognize, drove deeper into an area where buildings thinned and darkness thickened. I'm what happens when violence becomes legacy, when power replaces conscience. I've done things that would make you run screaming if you knew details. Then why tell me? Because you should know, should understand what you've gotten involved with. He pulled into an overlook. Below us, the city spread like scattered diamonds, beautiful and distant. He killed the engine, turned to face me fully. "I'm giving you an out, Emma, right now. Walk away. I'll make sure you're taken care of, money, protection, everything you need. But walk away before this gets complicated." "Complicated how?" "Complicated like I'm starting to care whether you eat enough. Complicated like I check security footage of your building 3 times a day to make sure you're safe. Complicated like I've forbidden anyone to even look at you wrong because the thought of someone hurting you makes me want to burn the city down." His voice dropped, rough with something raw. "Complicated like I'm obsessed with you, Emma. And I don't do obsessed. I do controlled. I do calculated. I do careful. But with you..." He trailed off, jaw tight, hands clenched on his thighs like he was physically restraining himself from reaching for me. My heart thundered so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. With me? What? With you, I want things I've never wanted. Soft things, dangerous things. His eyes found mine in the darkness, and what I saw there stole my breath. "I want to keep you, not as an employee, not as an asset. I want you in my home, in my bed, in my life so thoroughly that no one, including you, forgets who you belong to. I don't belong to anyone, yet." He leaned closer, and I should have backed away, should have opened the door and run. But I was frozen, caught in his gravity, drowning in his intensity. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me you don't think about me. Tell me every time your phone rings, you don't hope it's me. I couldn't. God help me, I couldn't lie. This is crazy, I whispered instead. Yes. You're dangerous. Yes. I have a daughter, a life. I can't just... I know. His hand rose, cupped my cheek with devastating gentleness. I know what I'm asking. I know it's selfish and wrong and completely unfair, but I can't stop wanting you, Emma. I've tried. For 3 months, I've tried to keep this professional, to maintain distance. But every time I see you, every time you touch someone I care about with those gentle hands, every time you look at me like maybe I'm not completely irredeemable. He exhaled roughly. I'm not a good man, but I'd be good to you. I'd be everything you need. You can't promise that. Watch me. The kiss happened like lightning, sudden, inevitable, catastrophic. His mouth claimed mine with controlled hunger, lips firm and demanding but somehow still asking permission. I made a sound. Protest or surrender, I couldn't tell. And his hand slid into my hair, angling my head to deepen the kiss. I'd been kissed before, by Lily's father, by a few forgettable men during my rare attempts at dating. This was nothing like those kisses. This was possession, promise, threat, and salvation wrapped together until I couldn't tell which was which. He kissed me like he was claiming territory, like my mouth was his to conquer, like he'd been starving and I was the first meal he'd seen in years. And I kissed him back. God help me. I kissed him back with everything I had. All the loneliness, all the fear, all the desperate hunger for someone to see me, really see me and still want me anyway. My hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and he groaned against my mouth, a sound that vibrated through my entire body. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine. Say yes. To what? To me. To this. To letting me take care of you properly. His thumb traced my swollen lips. Be mine, Emma. Officially. Completely. Reality crashed back in waves of ice water. I can't. Lily will have everything she could ever need. The best schools, the best life, everything. His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. I meant what I said before. She'll never see the dark parts. I'll keep her innocent, safe, separate. She'll know me as Dante, your boyfriend. The words sounded foreign in his mouth, nothing more. And when she asks what you do, I own businesses, import, export, security consulting, all technically true. He smiled slightly. I'm very good at truth that hides lies. This is insane. Yes. I should say no. Probably. Dante, say yes anyway. It wasn't a question. It was a plea wrapped in command, delivered with an intensity that made my chest ache. Let me keep you. Let me protect you. Let me give you everything you've been struggling alone to provide. Let me be selfish and have you. Every rational thought screamed to refuse. This man was dangerous, violent, involved in things that could destroy me. Getting closer meant risk, meant exposure, meant Lily could potentially get hurt. But looking at him, really looking at those dark eyes that held more emotion than I'd seen in 3 months, at the tension in his jaw, at the vulnerability hidden beneath layers of control, I saw something else. I saw someone as lonely as I was. Someone who'd built walls so high and thick that letting anyone in felt like suicide. Someone who was terrified of what he felt, but brave enough to say it anyway. I saw myself reflected in him, and maybe that's what made me reckless. One condition, I heard myself say. Hope flared in his eyes. Anything. You meet her. Properly. Not as my employer, not as some shadow in the background. If this is real, if you want me in your life, then you meet my daughter. And if she doesn't like you, this ends. He blinked, clearly not expecting that. You want me to meet Lily. I want to know if you can be gentle with the most important person in my world. I want to see if you're capable of being what you're promising. I held his gaze steadily. Can you do that? Silence stretched. For a moment I thought I'd miscalculated, pushed too hard, asked too much. Then he smiled. Real, warm, devastating. Sunday. I'll pick you both up. Somewhere child-appropriate. No business, no calls, just us. Just us, I echoed, wondering what the hell I'd just agreed to. He kissed me again, softer this time, like sealing a contract. You won't regret this. I already do. He laughed against my lips, the sound rich and genuine. Liar. Maybe I was. When he drove me home, he walked me to my door, checked every shadow, every corner, every potential threat with the hypervigilance of someone who knew how dangerous the world really was. Sleep well, Bellezza, he murmured, pressing a kiss to my forehead. Dream of good things. Is that an order? A hope. I watched him walk away, climb into his car, drive into the darkness with security vehicles materializing from nowhere to flank him. Protection. Always protection. Inside my apartment, I leaned against the door, fingers touching my lips, heart racing, mind spinning. I'd just agreed to date a Mafia boss. I'd just invited him into my daughter's life. I'd just crossed a line I could never uncross. And the terrifying part? I wasn't sure I wanted to. My phone buzzed. A text from unknown caller that was definitely him. Thank you for saying yes. I won't let you down. Another message. Also, there's a security detail on your building now. Don't be alarmed. Old habits. And finally, you're mine now, Emma. I take care of what's mine. I should have been angry about the possessiveness, the presumption, the high-handed way he'd decided to protect me without asking. Instead, I smiled, saved his number under Dante, and went to check on Lily. She slept peacefully, clutching her stuffed rabbit, innocent to how drastically her world was about to change. I hope I'm making the right choice, baby, I whispered, kissing her forehead. But as I climbed into bed, still tasting Dante on my lips, feeling the ghost of his touch on my skin, I couldn't quite convince myself I cared if it was right or wrong. I just wanted him, and that was the most dangerous thing of all. Sunday arrived with the kind of nervous energy that made my hands shake while braiding Lily's hair. Who's Dante, Mommy? She asked for the third time, swinging her legs from the bathroom counter. A friend. Someone I work with sometimes. I forced steadiness into my voice, weaving her blonde curls into something presentable. He wants to take us somewhere fun today. Like the zoo? Maybe. I had no idea where Dante planned to take us. He'd only texted, dress casual. Bring Lily's favorite things. Trust me. Trust. What a loaded word. The knock came precisely at 10. I checked the peephole. Unnecessary. Since I'd watched the street for the past hour, seen the black SUV pull up, seen Dante emerge in jeans and a black Henley that made him look dangerously normal. I opened the door, and my breath caught. He stood there holding a stuffed unicorn the size of a small dog, expression uncertain in a way I'd never seen. Behind him, his security tried to look inconspicuous while failing miserably. Hi, he said, and I realized he was nervous. Dante Moretti, who commanded empires and orchestrated violence with casual efficiency, was nervous about meeting a 4-year-old. Something in my chest melted dangerously. Hi, I managed. Lily peeked around my legs, eyes wide. You're really tall. Dante crouched immediately, bringing himself to her eye level. The gesture was so instinctively gentle it made my throat tight. I am. Is that okay? She considered this seriously. I guess. Did you bring that for me? He offered the unicorn. Only if you like unicorns. Lily snatched it with a squeal, hugging it so hard I worried she'd suffocate the stuffing. I love unicorns. Mommy, he brought me a unicorn. I see that, baby. I caught Dante's eye over her head, saw the relief and something softer, pride, maybe, at having passed the first test. The day unfolded like something from a dream I'd never dared to have. Dante took us to a private farm outside the city. Animals, open fields, a petting zoo that Lily attacked with fearless enthusiasm. I watched him watch her, saw how he noticed everything. When she got tired, when she got thirsty, when she needed help reaching the goats but was too proud to ask, he lifted her onto his shoulders without being asked, held her steady while she giggled and pointed at clouds, and I took a mental photograph of this moment, this dangerous man carrying my daughter like she was precious, like she mattered, like he'd burn the world to keep her smiling. She's beautiful, he said during lunch, while Lily was distracted by the ducks. She has your eyes. She has her father's coloring. His expression darkened fractionally. He's an idiot. Yes, I agreed simply. His loss. Dante's hand found mine across the picnic table, fingers interlacing with casual possession. My gain. Lily ran back, demanding we come see the baby goats, and Dante went without hesitation, let her pull him around, answered her endless questions with patience I'd never expected. By the time we headed back to the city, Lily was asleep in her car seat, unicorn clutched tight, and I was fighting tears I couldn't explain. She likes you, I said quietly. She's easy to like. Dante glanced in the rearview mirror at my sleeping daughter. She's got your strength, your kindness. She's going to break hearts when she's older, not if I can help it. He smiled. Protective mother. Always. Good. His hand found my thigh, squeezed gently. So am I now. The words hit different than they should have. This wasn't just about me anymore. He was claiming Lily too, in his way. Claiming us as a unit, something to protect and possess and keep safe within his dangerous world. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt safe for the first time in years. We were 2 blocks from my apartment when everything went to hell. The car that slammed into us came from nowhere. One moment we were driving, the next we were spinning, metal shrieking, glass exploding, the world inverting as we flipped twice before crashing to a stop upside down. Lily's scream cut through the ringing in my ears. Lily! I fought my seatbelt, tasting blood, vision swimming. Baby, don't move! Dante's voice, sharp with command. Blood streamed down his face from a gash on his forehead, but his eyes were clear, focused. Emma, don't move yet. Let me. Gunfire erupted. Bullets punched through the already shattered windows, and Dante threw himself across the center console, covering me with his body as glass rained down. Stay down. He had a gun. When had he drawn a gun? Returning fire with lethal precision while keeping himself between us and the threat. I twisted, saw Lily still strapped in her car seat, crying but moving, and relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly vomited. We need to get out, I shouted over the gunfire. Working on it. Dante's security had materialized. Where had they been? Laying down covering fire. He kicked out the windshield, grabbed my arm. When I say run, you run. Get Lily and run toward the black SUV. Don't stop. Don't look back. Understand? I'm not leaving you. Emma. He cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. Blood and dirt streaked his skin. But his gaze was steady, absolute. You run. I'll cover you. I'll be right behind you. But you and Lily get safe first. That's non-negotiable. Another spray of bullets. Someone screamed, not one of ours. Now! Dante shoved me toward the broken windshield. I crawled through, glass cutting my hands, adrenaline drowning the pain. Lily was still screaming, and I wrenched open the back door, fought with her car seat buckle with shaking hands. Mommy, I'm scared. I know, baby. I know. We're okay. We're going to be okay. I got her free, pulled her against my chest, felt her little heart racing against mine. Dante appeared beside us, firing over the car's roof. Go! I ran. Lily sobbed against my shoulder, her unicorn abandoned somewhere in the wreckage, and I ran harder than I'd ever run in my life. The SUV's door opened. Hands reached out, pulled us inside, and I collapsed onto the floor, covering Lily with my body as the vehicle peeled away. Dante dove in behind us, door slamming, and we accelerated so fast I slid sideways. Status! He barked. 3 hostiles down, 2 fled. Marco's hit but stable. Vehicle totaled. The driver, the mountain from my first call, spoke calmly despite the chaos. Hospital? Safe house, now. Dante crawled to where I curled around Lily on the floor. Emma. Emma, look at me. I did, saw concern carved into every line of his face. Are you hurt? Is Lily hurt? I checked her frantically. Cuts from glass, bruises forming, but nothing serious, nothing life-threatening. We're okay. We're okay. You're bleeding. Surface cuts. I'm fine. I touched his face, felt blood hot and wet. You're hurt. I've had worse. He pulled out his phone, somehow still intact, made rapid-fire calls in Italian. Then to me, gentler. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. This was meant for me, not you, never you. Who? The word came out harsh. Who did this? His jaw clenched. Rivals. Someone who thinks hurting what I care about will hurt me. They're right. He looked at Lily, who'd stopped crying but trembled violently. They're very right. The safe house was a mansion disguised as a fortress. High walls, security checkpoints, armed men everywhere. Dante carried Lily inside while I followed on shaking legs, let him guide us to a bedroom that looked like it belonged in a hotel. Doctor's coming, he said, setting Lily gently on the bed. He'll check you both. Then we talk. The doctor, older, discreet, clearly used to Dante's world, examined us with efficient kindness. Minor injuries, shock, but nothing requiring hospitalization. He bandaged my hands, gave Lily a sedative to help her sleep, and left medications with quiet instructions. Once Lily finally dozed off, clutching a new stuffed animal that materialized from nowhere, I followed Dante to an adjacent room. He stood at the window, shoulders rigid, hands clenched at his sides. Blood still streaked his face despite obvious attempts to clean it. This is my fault, he said without turning. I brought this to your door. I made you a target. You didn't pull the trigger. I might as well have. He spun to face me, and the raw anguish in his expression stole my breath. I knew this could happen. I knew being with me made you vulnerable. But I was selfish. I wanted you anyway. And now, Lily. His voice cracked. She could have died, Emma. Because of me. I crossed to him, took his face in my bandaged hands. Look at me. Dante, look at me. He did. Eyes haunted. I chose this. Knowing what you were, knowing the risks. I chose you. I pressed my forehead to his, and yes, I'm terrified. Yes, this is exactly what I feared. But you saved us. You put yourself between us and bullets without hesitation. You protected my daughter like she was yours. She is mine. The words came out fierce. You both are. And I failed. You didn't fail. We're alive. We're safe. Because of you. I kissed him, tasting blood and fear and desperate need. Don't you dare push me away now. I should. For your safety. No. I pulled back, met his eyes steadily. You don't get to decide that alone. I'm in this. Lily's in this. We're yours, like you keep saying. So act like it. Protect us, yes. But don't leave us. Something broke in his expression, and he crushed me against his chest, face buried in my hair. His whole body shook. This powerful, dangerous man trembling like a leaf. I can't lose you, he whispered. I've lost so much. I can't lose you too. You won't. I held him tighter. I'm not going anywhere. We stood like that for long minutes. Two broken people clinging to each other in the aftermath of violence, finding something like peace in the eye of the storm. Eventually, he pulled back, wiped his eyes roughly. The men who did this, they're being handled. Handled how? Do you want details? I thought about Lily's terrified screams, about bullets ripping through metal, about how close we'd come to dying. No, just make sure they can't hurt us again. They can't hurt anyone again, said with finality that made me shiver. And I'm increasing security. On you, on Lily, on your building. You'll have protection everywhere, always. That sounds suffocating. That sounds alive. He cupped my face. I can't be careless with you, Emma. Not now. Not ever. You're too important. And what are we? What is this? Everything. Simple. Absolute. Terrifying in its honesty. You're everything. The next weeks were an adjustment. True to his word, Dante surrounded us with
Discreet
security,
but
present. Men who followed at a distance, who checked our building, who made sure we were never truly alone. It should have felt like prison. Instead, it felt like safety. He moved us to a better apartment, still my neighborhood, still near Lily's school, but bigger, safer, with security built into the building. I protested until he pointed out the bullet holes, still marking my old place, and I shut up. Lily adapted with the resilience of children. The attack became The scary car accident, smoothed over with therapy and time and Dante's patient presence. He visited often, always bringing small gifts, always gentle, always making her laugh. She started calling him Uncle Dante, and I saw how the title affected him, pride and pain mixing in his expression. "Not uncle," he said one night, after Lily was asleep and we lay tangled in my bed. "Not if I have my way?" "No. No." He traced patterns on my bare shoulder. "Something more permanent." My heart stuttered. "Dante, marry me." I bolted upright, staring at him. "What?" He sat up too, completely serious. "Marry me. Make this official. Let me give you my name, my protection, everything I have." "That's crazy. I'm crazy about you. Might as well make it legal." He caught my hand, pressed it over his heart. "I love you, Emma. I've loved you since you chose to help instead of run, since you looked at a monster and saw a man. I want forever with you. I want to be Lily's father legally. Want to give her siblings if you'll have me. Want to grow old knowing you're mine and I'm yours." Tears streamed down my face. "I love you too. God help me. I love you." "Then say yes. Yes." I laughed through tears. "Yes, you insane, overprotective, wonderful man, yes." He kissed me like he was drowning, and I was air, like I'd just given him the world, like forever started right now. We married quietly, just close family, his mother who cried and called me daughter, his brothers who welcomed me with warm suspicion, Mrs. Chen and a few friends from the hospital who thought I'd won the lottery. Lily was flower girl, wearing a dress that cost more than my first car, throwing petals with solemn concentration that made everyone smile. And when Dante slid the ring onto my finger, when he promised to love and protect and cherish, I believed him. Because I'd seen him at his worst and his best, seen the monster and the man, and chosen both. 2 years later, I stood in our home, a real home, with a yard and safety and love, watching Dante teach Lily to ride a bike, while our son dozed in my arms. "Careful, Principessa," Dante called, jogging beside Lily as she wobbled. "I've got you." "Don't let go," she shrieked, delighted and terrified. "Never," he promised, and I knew he meant it about more than just the bike. He caught my eye across the yard, smiled that smile reserved only for us, and mouthed, "I love you." I mouthed back, "I love you too." It wasn't perfect. His world still demanded things I didn't like, still brought danger we had to navigate, but it was ours. Messy and complicated and real. I'd walked into a parking garage expecting nothing but another exhausting shift. Instead, I'd found everything. The man I loved, the family I'd needed, the safety I'd craved. And as Dante finally let go of Lily's bike and she rode solo, both of them cheering, I realized something profound. Sometimes the most dangerous choice is the right one. Sometimes monsters are just men who need someone to see them. Sometimes love finds you in parking garages and blood-soaked warehouses and moments of impossible choice. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to say yes, it gives you forever. "Mommy, did you see?" Lily skidded to a stop in front of me, face flushed with triumph. "I saw, baby. You were amazing." Dante joined us, sweeping her up in a hug before carefully taking our son from my arms. He looked at me over their heads, his wife, his family, his world, and I saw everything he couldn't say in his eyes. "Thank you. I love you. You saved me." I smiled, leaned into him, let the warmth of this moment soak into my bones. "Race you to the house," Lily demanded. "You're on, Principessa." Dante handed me the baby, kissed my forehead. "Winner gets dessert before dinner." "That's not fair!" But she was already running, and he was chasing, and I was laughing, and this was my life now. Complicated, dangerous, perfect, ours. And I wouldn't change a single thing.